Ever get that feeling?
Sure.
Like you're just spinning your wheels at work.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think we all have those days where it feels like we're just going through the motions, not really making a difference.
Exactly. Just checking off tasks, but not really moving towards any meaningful goal.
Right. It's like being busy but not productive.
And that's exactly what we're tackling in today's deep dive.
We're going to explore a framework that can help all of us shift from that busy work mentality to actually achieving real, lasting impact.
It's called the Outcomes-Based Performance Framework.
And it's all about focusing on the results, not just the tasks.
We actually have a really cool diagram from Visual Science Informatics, LLC, that lays this whole framework out visually.
It gives you a clear picture of how everything connects, starting with a big picture vision and then drilling down to the specific impacts you're aiming for.
Yeah, it's called Outcomes-Based Performance Framework for Continuous Improvement. It's a great visual.
Really helps to see how all the pieces fit together.
So let's start at the top with that big picture vision.
All right, so at the very top of the diagram, we have this section labeled VIMGOST.
VIMGOST.
Yeah, it stands for Vision, Mission Goals, Objectives, Strategy, and Topic.
Okay, so basically everything you need to define where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Exactly. It's the foundation for setting those desired outcomes. You have to know where you're headed before you can start figuring out how to get there.
Makes sense. And this is where a lot of organizations stumble, right?
Oh, absolutely. If your vision, mission, and goals aren't clear, then everyone's going to be pulling in different directions.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint.
Yeah, exactly. You end up with a mess.
So VIMGOST sets the stage, but then you need to consider all those practical realities.
The inputs.
Right, like what resources do you have? What are the constraints?
Exactly. And the diagram actually breaks down inputs into a bunch of different categories.
Let's see, we've got assumptions, constraints, principles, biases, risks, resources, best practices, policy protocol, procedure, success factors, guidelines.
Wow, that's a lot to consider. But it's all crucial for realistic planning.
Yeah, like there's no point in aiming for a moon landing if you have a paper airplane budget, right?
Exactly. You need to be honest about what you have to work with and what limitations you're facing.
But limitations can also breed creativity sometimes.
Sure. Oh, for sure. Sometimes when you have to work within constraints, you come up with the most innovative solutions.
So you've got your vision, you've taken stock of your inputs, now it's time to take action.
Enter the interventions.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right? The actual things you're doing to make change happen.
The diagram lists 4 main categories of interventions: people, process, technology, and information.
I guess people would be things like training or team building.
Exactly. And process could involve things like streamlining workflows or adopting new methodologies.
And technology, well, that's got to be all about those fancy gadgets, right?
Not necessarily. Technology is really about choosing the right tools to support your people and your processes. It's not just about having the latest and greatest tech. It's about using technology strategically to achieve your desired outcomes.
All right, so technology should serve the goals, not the other way around.
Exactly. And then we have information, which is all about gathering the data you need to make informed decisions.
Data is so important these days, right?
Absolutely. You can't improve what you don't measure.
So we've got our interventions in place, and now we need to figure out if they're actually working.
That's where the outputs come in.
Outputs are the direct, measurable results of our interventions, right?
Exactly. For example, if one of your interventions was to host a training session for employees, then the output might be 100 employees trained.
Okay, so outputs are what we've done, but not necessarily what we've achieved.
Right. It's the difference between activity and accomplishment.
Got it. So outputs are like the speedometer.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us how fast we're going, but not necessarily if we're headed in the right direction.
I like that analogy. And that's where outcomes come in. Outcomes are like the GPS. They tell us if we're on the right track and making progress towards our ultimate destination.
So how do we measure outcomes?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. The diagram lists a whole bunch of different types of outcomes: financial, customer, internal learning, and then a bunch of percentages like performance quality, safety, effectiveness, efficiency, efficacy, and equity.
It's about looking at the impact of your outputs from all angles.
Exactly. You want to see how your interventions are affecting all aspects of your organization and your stakeholders.
And then finally, we get to the impacts.
The long-term effects, the lasting change we're aiming for.
The diagram lists impacts like the political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental.
It's about understanding the ripple effect of your actions, the broader consequences of achieving your desired outcomes.
So it's like throwing a pebble into a pond. The initial splash is the output, The ripples are the outcomes, and the lasting changes to the pond's ecosystem are the impacts.
I love that analogy. It really captures the idea that everything is interconnected.
So we've journeyed from vision to impact, following the flow of this outcomes-based performance framework.
And remember, this isn't a one-time process. It's a cycle of continuous improvement.
You're constantly gathering data, evaluating your outcomes and impacts, and then using that information to refine your approach.
It's about always striving to do better to make a bigger difference.
And it all starts with that clear vision at the top.
Without that vision, you're just wandering in the dark.
So I guess the question for all of us is,
What are the real outcomes we're aiming for?
and how can we use this framework to make a lasting impact?
Those are great questions to ponder.
And remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Start by identifying one area where you can apply this framework and see what happens.
You might be surprised by the results.
I think we all would be.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this powerful framework with you.